You are sitting in a courtroom. The air conditioning hums above you, and the fluorescent lights wash everything in a pale institutional yellow. You are not the accused. You are not the judge. You are the observer. And what you are about to watch has been playing out in courtrooms, prison yards, and public squares across this planet every single day of your life, while most of the world looks the other way. This is not ancient history. This is not a textbook chapter about the Middle Ages. This is happening right now in countries with armies, in airports, in internet connections, and seats at the United Nations. Punishments that most people in Western democracies assume disappeared centuries ago are still being formally administered by functioning governments, sanctioned by law, carried out by officials who go home afterward to their families and eat dinner and watch television. And the question that should keep you up at night is not whether these things happen. It is why most of us never ask why. If you've been wondering what justice actually looks like on the other side of the world, stay with Channel Name. This is the kind of story that changes the frame on everything else you think you know. Start with Singapore. You arrive at Changi Airport, which is routinely ranked one of the most beautiful airports on Earth. It has butterfly gardens and movie theaters, and a waterfall inside a glass dome. You clear customs, and the immigration officer is efficient and polite. The country is clean, the trains run on time. The murder rate in 2023 was effectively zero. And somewhere in Changi Prison, a corrections officer is preparing a rattan cane, approximately 1.2 meters long and 1.27 centimeters in diameter, soaked in water overnight to increase its flexibility and its capacity to cut into skin. Judicial caning in Singapore is not a relic. Between 2,000 and 3,000 men are caned annually, according to estimates from the government's own records. It is mandatory for over 30 categories of offense, including drug trafficking, vandalism, and certain immigration violations. When American teenager Michael Fay was sentenced to 4 strokes in 1994 for vandalism, the diplomatic incident that followed briefly brought global attention to the practice. The Clinton administration formally requested clemency. Singapore reduced the sentence from 6 strokes to 4 and carried it out anyway. The procedure is precise. You are strapped to a trestle frame, your lower body exposed. A doctor examines you beforehand to certify you are fit to receive punishment. The officer administering it is trained. He takes a running step. The cane is brought down with full force. The skin splits. You are not permitted to receive more than 24 strokes at one time, and if the medical officer determines you cannot continue, remaining strokes are postponed until you have healed, at which point they are administered. The sentence is completed. This is the law. The Singaporean government's position is direct. The low crime rate is the point, and there is research that complicates simple condemnation. Scholars who have studied the deterrence literature note that Singapore's violent crime numbers are genuinely among the lowest on Earth, whether that is because of corporal punishment, cultural cohesion, economic stability, or the interaction of all three is a question no one has cleanly answered. But the punishment exists. It is legal. It is practiced. And the man in the trestle frame did not agree to it. Move now to Saudi Arabia. You understand intellectually that the kingdom operates under a legal framework derived from Islamic law, as interpreted by the Hanbali school of jurisprudence. You have read that. But reading it and understanding what it means in physical practice are two entirely different things. Amputation for theft has been a feature of the Saudi legal code since the country's founding in 1932. In 2019, the Saudi government reported carrying out 184 amputations, though human rights organizations place the figure higher and note that documentation is incomplete. The procedure is surgical. You are given anesthesia. A surgeon removes the right hand at the wrist. The stump is cauterized. You are treated for infection. You recover, and then you leave the hospital and spend the rest of your life without your right hand. In a culture where the left hand carries significant social stigma, where handshakes and eating and gestures of greeting all carry meaning that you can no longer participate in fully. The threshold for amputation requires proof of a specific value of stolen goods and certain conditions of intent, which defenders of the system argue makes wrongful application rare. Critics note that the defendants most often subjected to it are foreign workers, men from Pakistan and Bangladesh and Ethiopia who came to the kingdom to work construction or domestic service, who often lack adequate legal representation, who may not understand the proceedings being conducted against them. In 2020, a Pakistani man had his hand amputated for stealing a motorcycle. He had been in Saudi Arabia for 3 years, sending money home to his children. You do not need to believe that his crime was trivial to feel the weight of what happened to him. Both things can be true at once. That is precisely what makes this uncomfortable to sit with. Cross into Iran. The legal term is qisas, which translates roughly as retaliation in kind. Under this principle, which is enshrined in the Iranian Penal Code, a victim of a violent crime or their family has the legal right to demand equivalent physical punishment against the perpetrator. In cases of intentional blinding, the victim or their family can legally request that the perpetrator be blinded in the same manner. In cases of deliberate disfigurement, matching disfigurement can be ordered. And in cases of murder, the family holds the legal option to demand execution, to accept blood money, or to forgive. In 2011, an Iranian man named Majid Movahedi was blinded in both eyes with acid dropped by a physician in a hospital courtroom after the woman he had attacked with acid years earlier demanded the equivalent punishment under qisas. The procedure was performed. The legal system had functioned exactly as designed. In 2021, international pressure and last-minute pardons have occasionally halted blinding sentences. But occasionally is not never. The sentence exists. Courts issue it. And in the moments when it is carried out, everyone present is acting within the law as written. Go further east. In North Korea, the legal architecture is different because there is almost no formal public law in the traditional sense. What exists instead is a system of political classification that assigns citizens and their families to one of 51 social categories based on loyalty to the regime. Categories that determine where you can live, what jobs are available to you, what food distribution you receive, and whether you are sent to one of the political prison camps that satellite imagery has confirmed hold an estimated 80,000 to 120,000 people at any given time. The camps are not prisons in the sense you would recognize. Camp 14 covers approximately 155 square kilometers. Former prisoners who have defected to South Korea describe being required to watch public executions as a condition of camp life. Children born inside the camps begin working at age 6. Shin Dong-hyuk, one of the only people known to have been born inside a political prison camp and escaped, described watching his mother and brother executed when he was 14. For an attempted escape, he had reported to guards. He did not understand at that age that he had expected a reward. He received instead the memory of watching them die. He carried that memory across the border, and it did not stop being true when he got to the other side. These are not punishments in the narrow legal sense. There was no trial, no sentence in the formal meaning of the word, and that is precisely the point. The punishment infrastructure that exists in North Korea operates outside the structures that the rest of the world uses to evaluate whether a punishment is just. There is no appeal. There is no review. There is no mechanism by which the international legal framework of human rights can reach inside and change what is happening. And it has been happening since the 1950s. Return to something you might have considered more familiar. You know that solitary confinement exists in the American prison system. What you may not know is the scale. According to a 2023 report by the Unlock the Box campaign, approximately 122,000 people in the United States are held in solitary confinement or restrictive housing on any given day. The United Nations Standard Minimum Rules for the Treatment of Prisoners, adopted in 2015, define prolonged solitary confinement as confinement for 22 or more hours per day for more than 15 consecutive days and classifies it as torture or cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment. The average stay in solitary in American prisons is not 15 days. In many state systems, it is measured in years. Some individuals have spent more than a decade in cells smaller than 80 square feet, permitted out for 1 hour per day, sometimes less. The documented psychiatric effects are not controversial in the research literature. Prolonged isolation produces hallucinations, panic attacks, hypersensitivity to stimuli, cognitive impairment, and a form of psychological deterioration that researchers describe as the specific syndrome of solitary confinement, distinguishable from other forms of mental illness by its direct correlation to the isolation itself. You live in a country that sends diplomatic cables about the treatment of prisoners in Iran and North Korea. You also live in a country that held a man in a Colorado federal prison unit called H Unit for 23 hours per day for 11 years before anyone outside was able to document exactly what that experience produced in a human being. The cognitive dissonance required to hold both of these things simultaneously is considerable. Most people solve it by not holding both things at the same time. In Indonesia, public flogging is practiced in Aceh province under local Sharia bylaws, which were granted special autonomy status as part of a 2005 peace agreement ending a decades-long separatist conflict. The floggings take place in public squares after Friday prayers. People bring children. There are food vendors nearby. The individuals being punished, who may have been found guilty of offenses including gambling, drinking alcohol, or being in close proximity to a member of the opposite sex outside of marriage, kneel on a mat while a robed officer strikes them with a rattan cane. In 2020, 2 men were flogged 77 times each for consensual same-sex relations. They were non-Muslim, which under the local code at the time should have exempted them. They were flogged anyway. In Yemen, which has been in a state of active conflict since 2015, multiple armed factions, including the Houthi movement, administer punishments in territories under their control that include amputation and execution for a range of offenses. In areas controlled by other factions, the situation varies but does not consistently improve. The infrastructure of cruelty does not require a functioning state. It requires only authority and the absence of accountability. In China, the judicial system administers the death penalty at a rate that human rights researchers estimate is higher than the rest of the world combined. The exact number is a state secret. Amnesty International's most recent public estimate is that China executes several thousand people per year, compared to a global total outside China of several hundred. Executions in China are carried out by lethal injection or gunshot, are not publicized in advance, and families are sometimes informed only after the fact or required to pay for the bullet. What connects all of these practices is not geography or religion or ideology. What connects them is a theory of punishment that prioritizes something other than rehabilitation, something other than the internal transformation of the person being punished. Whether it is deterrence, as Singapore argues, whether it is proportionality, as Kisas in Iran insists, whether it is political control, as in North Korea, whether it is social condemnation made visible, as in public flogging. The punishment is not designed to change the person. It is designed to change everyone watching. And this is where the thing becomes genuinely difficult to process. Because when you strip away the cultural and legal scaffolding, the underlying logic is comprehensible. You can understand the argument that visibility matters. You can understand the argument that consequences must be felt, not just recorded. You can understand the argument that a society has the right to express its values through its punishments, and that those values do not automatically align with the values of countries 8,000 miles away. You can understand all of that, and you can still sit with the image of a man in a trestle frame, of a surgeon removing a hand, of a child watching an execution in a mountain camp, and understand that comprehension is not the same as justification. That the logic being applied has a structure does not mean the logic is correct. That people in authority have always been capable of constructing frameworks that explain why this particular harm, right now, is necessary and measured and just. They have always believed it. That is not reassuring. That is the thing that should stay with you. Somewhere today, a corrections officer in Singapore is being instructed on cane maintenance. Somewhere today, a family in Saudi Arabia is waiting for a surgery they did not want but feel they are owed by a system that told them this is what justice looks like. Somewhere today, a human rights lawyer in The Hague is drafting language for a document that will be ignored by the governments it critiques and praised by the governments that already agree. Somewhere today, a man in an 80-square-foot cell in Colorado has been awake since 3 a.m. because the fluorescent light above him never turns off, and the sound of someone else's distress is echoing down a corridor, and there is no name for what is happening to him in any law that governs the place where he is being held. The question is not whether these things are happening. They are happening. The question is what you do with the knowledge that they are, and whether knowing changes anything at all. Most people decide it doesn't. Most people file it in the place where uncomfortable truths go, next to the statistics they have already stopped feeling. And the systems continue, because systems do not require your awareness to function, they only require your silence.